The story of World War I usually begins with a sense of inevitability, as if the major powers were always destined to collide. But there is one decision that could have changed the entire direction of the conflict: Britain choosing to stay neutral. The moment Britain stepped into the war, the balance of power shifted, the fighting expanded, and the consequences echoed for generations. But what if that moment never came? What if Britain watched the war from a distance, refusing to join either side? If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more content. This one decision would reshape the map of Europe, the politics of the world, and even the daily lives of millions. And step by step, the world would drift into a future we might not even recognize today. At the beginning of 1914, Britain was not eager for war. There were political arguments, public debates, and serious doubts. Many leaders felt the conflict in Central Europe was not worth British lives. Some believed Britain could protect its empire better by staying out. And the treaty with Belgium was viewed by many as unclear, not a clear order to fight. In this alternate timeline, those voices win. The government holds back. Instead of marching to support France and Belgium, Britain simply announces that it will remain neutral. Britain's navy stays in port. British soldiers stay at home. The world is shocked, especially France, which expected British support. And with this single decision, the first major shift begins. Germany reacts with enormous relief. In real history, German leaders feared the British Navy more than any army. The British blockade was what slowly strangled German supplies, food, and fuel. But in this alternate path, that blockade never begins. German ports stay open, trade continues, factories keep receiving materials. The fear of starvation, which pushed Germany into desperate decisions later in the war, does not exist. Germany can now fight with more confidence, more energy, and more time. Without British troops landing in France, Germany can focus all its early strength on the Western Front, pushing deeper into French territory in the first months. France, on the other hand, enters its darkest hour. In real history, British soldiers played a key role in stopping the German advance toward Paris during the Battle of the Marne. Without them, France must stand alone. The French army fights hard, but the early weeks become more desperate, and the pressure becomes nearly overwhelming. In this alternate version, Paris is at real risk of falling. Some historians believe France might have been forced to negotiate if left to fight without British support. So the war in the West could end shockingly quickly. A peace treaty under German terms might be signed before the end of the year, leaving France weakened, resentful, and politically shaken. Meanwhile, the Eastern Front looks very different too. Russia still enters the war, but without France holding German forces in the West, the Germans can send more soldiers east. Russia faces a tougher, larger German army much sooner. The Russian military, already slow and poorly supplied, struggles even more. Losses mount quickly. Defeat after defeat weakens public confidence in the Tsar. In our real world, these failures help trigger the Russian Revolution. But in this alternate world, the timing changes. If the war ends early with a German victory, the revolution may be delayed or rise under different conditions. It is even possible that Lenin never gains power. Without the chaos and desperation created by years of war, the Bolshevik movement might never take control of Russia. Without the Soviet Union, the entire political shape of the 20th century changes. As France collapses and Russia stumbles, Britain continues to stand aside. The government believes neutrality protects the empire and avoids unnecessary bloodshed. But there are consequences. Britain's global reputation shifts. Allies feel abandoned. Germany becomes suspicious, unsure if Britain might eventually join the war. And neutral status does not mean Britain is uninvolved. British factories continue producing goods. British trade continues growing. Both sides seek British supplies, fueling Britain's economy. London becomes even more financially powerful at a time when Europe bleeds. On the surface, this looks like a victory. But under the surface, Europe is heading toward a very different shape of power. The Middle East also changes. In real history, British forces fought the Ottoman Empire, captured key territories, and shaped the borders of the modern Middle East. Without British involvement, the Ottoman Empire holds on longer. The map of the region might remain under Ottoman influence, with no British control in Iraq, no British presence in Palestine, and a very different future for the Arabian Peninsula. The modern borders we know today might not exist at all. Meanwhile, without Britain, the United States has no direct reason to join the war. In real history, German submarines attacked ships supplying Britain, pulling the US into the conflict. But if Britain is neutral, German submarines avoid provoking America. The US stays out. There is no American army crossing the Atlantic, no decisive push in 1918, and no American leadership in the post-war settlement. The United States remains focused on its own continent, and Europe remains dominated by old empires instead of rising democracies. By 1916, if Germany wins early or secures a peace deal, Europe becomes a continent shaped by German influence. Belgium might be absorbed into the German Empire. France could be forced into humiliating limits on its military. Eastern Europe might fall under German control through treaties, alliances, or economic pressure. Austria-Hungary survives longer as a partner to Germany. The Ottoman Empire survives as well. A massive German-led sphere stretches across Europe and into the Middle East. A new central bloc dominates two continents. In this world, Britain becomes wealthy but nervous. The empire stays intact, but Germany becomes its main rival. Instead of fighting one huge war together, Europe slowly splits into two competing powers, Britain and Germany. Their rivalry might remain cold and quiet, or it might build toward a different kind of major conflict later in the century. Without the Treaty of Versailles, there is no anger in Germany to empower Adolf Hitler. No Nazi movement rises. No Holocaust takes place. But that does not guarantee peace. A confident, victorious Germany might pursue expansion in other regions. Britain might respond by strengthening its navy, building alliances, and preparing for an eventual confrontation. Tension moves quietly across the world, not through fascism or communism, but through the slow rivalry of two great empires. Back in Ireland, history also shifts. The Easter Rising of 1916 happened while Britain was distracted by the war. In this alternate world, Britain faces no such distraction. The government watches Ireland closely. The rebellion might break out earlier, or it might be crushed quickly. Irish independence could be delayed or reshaped. The long struggle between Britain and Ireland unfolds differently, with consequences for future generations. Technology also evolves at a different pace. Tanks were a British invention designed to break trench warfare. Without British involvement, tank development slows. Aerial technology grows more slowly. Communications, code breaking, and military medicine follow a different path. The cultural impact of the war also changes. In real life, World War I produced a lost generation of writers, thinkers, and artists. Without Britain's involvement, their experiences and their influence might be completely different. By the 1920s or 1930s, the world now looks unlike anything we know. Germany dominates the European continent. France remains weak and resentful. Russia is unstable or still under the Tsar. The Ottoman Empire still holds territory. The United States stays isolated. And Britain watches all of this from a distance, powerful, but no longer the unquestioned leader of the world. Instead of two world wars, the world faces long-term tension, shifting alliances, and the possibility of a later, very different conflict. This alternate timeline shows how one decision, Britain staying neutral in 1914, could have redirected global history. No British entry means no early blockade. No blockade means no German desperation. No desperation means no US involvement. No long war means no Treaty of Versailles. No Treaty of Versailles might mean no Hitler, no Nazism, and no World War II as we know it. But instead of peace, the world becomes a place shaped by a strong Germany, a cautious Britain, and unpredictable tensions stretching across Europe and Asia. Every region feels the impact differently. Every future event takes a new path, and the modern world transforms into something unfamiliar. This alternate history reminds us that the world we live in depends on choices made long before we were born. Britain entering World War I was one of those choices. Change it, and the story of the 20th century becomes a completely different journey. A world shaped by power struggles, shifting borders, and quiet rivalries, instead of the wars we studied in school. And with one decision removed, the world's future becomes a path full of possibilities we will never fully know.